Two weeks, ladies and gentlemen, we're nearly ready. The Last of Us Part 2 is approaching. Like, if I have been saying that the last couple videos, it's now really approaching. Not next Friday, but the Friday after will be our first day playing The Last of Us Part 2. And finally, after this long wait, all the delays, all the drama, everything that's going on, it's been crazy. 3 years of doing YouTube, all the stuff that would happen with Telltale when I cover The Walking Dead, all the delays and the company even closing. I still would take this, all this stuff that's happened. I've never covered a game and seen so much stuff happen to it prior to its release. And not good stuff on top of that. But it's nearly here. In today's video, we'll be discussing the Inside the World, the last Inside video. That's it. After this, it's over. And we're not getting any more, so this is the last time I'll talk about any Inside the stuff, and it's been a pleasure to cover these each week with you guys and gals. We're just gonna talk the main points of it again. Also, I want to say there will still be a couple more videos. My main walkthroughs for Grounded, I'm still doing Grounded walkthroughs to get ready for Part 2. Those mainly are going to be on the weekends, and get ready. My schedule and everything will start getting planned out for how we're going to play Part 2. And what are my plans post Part 2? You gotta start planning ahead. Also, if you're unaware, next week, the reviews are coming. And I know that starts to bring up a lot of emotion with me because I'm nervous with all the leaks, everyone that got pissed off about everything that happened in that, even though I've been avoiding the leaks, and we're nearly there. So I'm interested to see, will the game get a 90 in Metacritic? Will it get even higher? Could it still be the game of the year? 95s to 100s? I'm interested to see what number Metacritic ends up having with the total of all the reviews together. But companies such as IGN, GameSpot, etc. are going to give us their reviews. And again, I'm not going to be viewing any. I'm probably going to check the numbers and see what they give it. But I'm going to just, like I said, for the sake, I'm going to avoid any kind of spoiler I can to what happens with the story.
The world of The Last of Us is dangerous. Unless you're living in a protected area, there is something lethal around every corner. Once you venture out of your home, you're in danger. And where we're taking the story and where we're taking Ellie is, like, each step of the way, she's putting herself in more and more danger to bring these people to justice.
I would say that the world, in every sense of the word, is bigger than The Last of Us Part 1. Both in scale and the amount of physical space that exists for you to explore, for you to encounter other people.
Yeah, this route has its perks.
Jackson specifically, we wanted to make it feel like a very close-knit kind of community that's focused on family, focused on sustainable ways of living. I obviously have the hydroelectric dam generator that's powering the town, so we have, electricity in Jackson, which is not something that maybe players would expect to see in the world. But given that we're further in time, we wanted to show that there are certain people dedicated in the world to rebuilding a life that doesn't revolve around killing people and scavenging.
As you walk around the town, you can hear kids laughing. You could see people going into restaurants and eating, and it's a very kind of tranquil town. Now, we know there's all these horrible things happening outside the walls, but they've been able to protect the innocence of this town.
Jackson, in many ways, represents what is at stake for our characters. A life of peace and relative comfort. A life where you can fall in love, a place where children can play and it's okay. And I think, when we were looking at building out Jackson, it's like, okay, how many of those moments can we represent? What's awesome about the world of The Last of Us is it shows just how precious the things that we take for granted in our everyday lives, how precious those things really are.
One faction you run into in Seattle is the Washington Liberation Front. When the outbreak happened, the military took some pretty drastic actions and quarantined parts of the country. And this was their way of protecting the population has survived this horrendous outbreak. And because of that, it led to rise of these resistance groups. And in the first game, we saw the Fireflies. And we heard about other groups, and in this game we get to see, here's another group that rose called the Washington Liberation Front that was able to defeat the army and thereby take over a lot of their equipment. And they're this very militaristic faction.
Seraphites. And they're a religious group that also came up out of the outbreak that believed that the pandemic came because of sin. They're trying to reset the world and return it to a better place than it was.
In The Last of Us, almost any group that has survived this long has to be dangerous. If you're not dangerous, you're not going to survive. You're going to become someone's victim. And the two factions you run into are both very dangerous. The WLF has a lot of military equipment that they're able to use to defend this area, and they have large numbers, whereas the Seraphites are very quiet and stealthy and able to use the large amount of foliage to their advantage, and they fight more in this kind of guerrilla warfare.
How you deal with them is going to be different because they have different language, they different communication style. The scars will whistle to each other with this different language. And they have some of the stuff that you have. You have a bow and arrow, they can hit you with arrows and impale you, and you have to pull the arrow out. They have big sledgehammers and melee weapons. The WLF, they have trained dogs that will sniff and attack you.
Dogs are a new level of threat that Ellie hasn't had to negotiate before, and hopefully they create a new complicated choice for the player. We saw in them an opportunity to challenge people's perceptions of what a combat setup can be. We wanted to find really hard choices. The dogs themselves have names. They're called out by their owners. We wanted every setup to be challenging.
Oh, that smell. Looks like infected did this. How many do you think it would take to bring down a moose?
Infected are still a threat in this world. We wanted to take first our basic classes that we had in the first game and say, okay, what's different about them now? So we'll have scenarios where way more runners, like we can have hordes sometimes of runners coming after you, and it might be about just escaping because the odds are just overwhelming. You know, this thing just keeps mutating. There's certain evolutions of infected that you haven't seen before, certain new classes.
There's the Shamblers, which kind of have these exploding acid clouds when you get near them.
You're running down a hallway and you have to suddenly make a decision like, oh, do I want to take the damage and go through this cloud or find some other route or go back the way I came? And it kind of forces you to, on the fly, kind of make new decisions about how you're going to deal with the threat behind you or potentially in front of you.
So, I usually don't play that much, but there was a lot of stuff I wanted you guys to listen to there. They talked about the Seraphites, the WLF, Jackson, the level designs, how much more dangerous the world's gonna get further on through the story, Seattle, and it continues on to tell there's a lot of stuff to this world. And again, like it said, the world is much more massive. We even had some new images, some new concept art stuff, as well as a couple new images of Ellie and Dina, a little 5-second clips of each that, we can coincide, maybe talk about a little bit here in a minute. Now, they talked about the level design. There's rivers, craggy cliffs, blind corners where you might see a threat ahead of you. They're going to be out. They're going to be everywhere. Jackson, the city, where, again, we never really got to see it in part 1. We got to see it at the ending, but we're finally going to see it now in part 2 and see the sense of family, how they're rebuilding, and the entire premise of this game is going to be to whatever threat Ellie's facing and all that and all them, their end goal is to have a happy ending, be safe with family. Don't kill people, don't scavenge, but we're going to find out, throughout the story, it's going to probably change. Seattle, though, the war zone, that place I'm probably more interested than anything to see, and it's probably where we're going to spend a majority of the game, it seems like, because Jackson's going to be probably the beginning, middle half, then after that, Ellie's going to go to Seattle, and the revenge is going to be beginning. And then we're going to see the Seraphites, we're going to see the WLF. The Seraphites, it's going to be the stealth group. We're going to have to use stealth techniques. WLF, we could be a little more aggressive, but I'm always more of a stealth player myself, so I'm interested to find out who are the leaders of both the Seraphites and the WLF. And man, I'm interested, man. There's so much mystery to them. And the characters, especially the mystery group that we saw fighting the Seraphites, we didn't know about them. And I need to know more about the WLF and their role. And what is the connection between the WLF and the Seraphites? Are they connected in any way? And you also saw the dogs. They all have a name. Each experience is going to feel fresh. And, you know, the enemy's calling each other out by name. It's going to make the experience something more interesting than just regular NPCs. Now, we're going to talk about the 2 new images really quick, then I'll end off the video here. But man, there's a lot to discuss just from this. There's also, Neo basically confirmed, you know, there's more than 1 or 2 new infected classes. I'm fairly certain based on what he was saying. And also, one other note of consideration to take is that there's going to be, you know how there was, like, Days Gone, there were, like, hordes of, you know, infected zombies, whatever you want to say. There's going to be like that in The Last of Us. So I'm interested to see how it's going to work in certain situations you're going to have to run. This is the first image I showcased that's new. At least there was a little dialogue option. Basically that the infected teared apart that moose there, and Ellie and Dina are talking about. This is probably before they go into one of the areas, buildings, whatever you want to say. But it just shows that this is going to lead into the cabin part probably, where all shit starts to go down, you know, infected and all that. We're going to really start to see a build up here. And then this is the scene where Dina tells Ellie this route has its perks. And the route they're taking together, we're going to see probably leads into that with the moose, the infected. You're going to see probably this, you know, I'm starting to put pieces together based on what we're seeing, but I don't want to do too much of this because I want to go in with an open mindset and not try and solve everything before it, you know, comes at us. All right, everybody. That is going to do it for the video. If you did enjoy this video, though, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you are new, and join the 33% of people that are subscribed to my YouTube channel by hitting that red subscribe button. And make sure to follow us on Twitter at DomTheBombYT, Instagram DomTheBomb, YouTube, stay connected with us. And I'll catch y'all guys in the next video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace and love, everybody. The final countdown is here.